Brad Treliving and Kent Hughes are in a huge battle right now for a free agent signing, plus a Nick Robertson trade that sends him to Edmonton that makes a whole lot of sense. I'm going to break it all down for you guys coming up on this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we get into it, we got to say we're on the road for 5,000 subscribers here on the channel. If you're not subscribed already, you want to keep up to date on everything that's happening around the league heading into the season, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button. But with that said, let's jump right into the first topic of the video today, which is Robertson trade coming. And yes, this has been something we've talked about a lot here on the channel over this past summer, really, is will Robertson be with the Maple Leafs on opening night? And with some trades still happening, it's looking like we're leaning towards the side of Nick Robertson going away in a trade right now. And we did get a report come out from the hockey writers saying that the Edmonton Oilers may be the best suitable option for a trade for Nick Robertson. As we take a look at the article here, they say obviously the Oilers had Broberg and Holloway go out offer sheets to the St. Louis Blues, and after that they traded for Podkolzin from the Vancouver Canucks to kind of bolster their roster a little bit, and they may be looking to add another face here in Nick Robertson. They also go on to say here that, even though Nick Robertson has a better stat line than Podkolzin, we're looking around the same value in a trade for this guy. Looking at maybe a third-round pick and a low-end prospect to bring Nick Robertson to Edmonton. They say, in theory, a deal for Robertson might only cost a third-round pick, and you get someone in return like Phil Kemp or Albin Sundin, which would be pretty cool to see those guys come in, maybe get into the Marley system and try to battle their way up to the NHL. But at this point in time, you're not going to get a lot more for Nick Robertson than a third-round pick and a prospect. You may get a second-round pick, but it's very unlikely at this point. You're more looking at a third just to get him off the way, get him out, because if he doesn't sign a contract, he's just going to be sitting at home. You're going to get a little bit in return for this guy, and, you still have that third-round pick to use during the trade deadline if you need to go out and acquire somebody else. But they also go on to say here in this article that the Oilers cap is currently at around $945,000, and they say it's widely believed that they want to save money and upgrade during the season, but it's hard to pass up on an opportunity in someone as skilled as Nick Robertson. They say he obviously needs a new contract. I don't think it would take much more than getting something worked out for under $1 million on a bridge deal. Yes, you trade for this guy, get him in on a one-year deal even, under $1 million, say, hey, prove yourself. If you prove that you can work with our team here in Edmonton, we will give you a longer-term deal. That makes the most sense, and it's pretty low risk for Edmonton by just giving away a third-round pick, a low prospect. It's very low risk. It's not like you're trading, one of your top guys out to get this guy. They also go on to say here, if the Oilers wanted to make a safe bet, they could try and move Ryan, who has about $900,000 cap hit instead of a prospect, which gives them a bit more flexibility with training camp rapidly approaching. Hopefully the Oilers make a move on Robertson and give him the fresh start he deserves to finally showcase what kind of potential the Maple Leafs are missing out on. And yes, we've been talking about this for a while. I think Nick Robertson is a fantastic player, no doubt about it. And I think if he stayed in Toronto and wanted to stay in Toronto, he could really become one of these great young guys that they have there, like a Matthew Nyes. I think he could definitely become that player, like a Bobby McMahon, like a, Matthew Nyes. He could be that young guy that could just excel in Toronto. But when I look at this, we've seen this so many times in Toronto. I've mentioned it in the past, is when players leave Toronto, it seems like they have, that weight off their shoulders and they just play amazing hockey. And I think that's what we're going to see with Nick Robertson. If he does get traded here, I think the Oilers should pounce on this if they can, because I think Nick Robertson is going to be a top player. He might not be, an elite goal scorer in the NHL, but I think he definitely has potential to get 30 goals a season, no doubt about it. He's only 22 years old. He's still young. He still has time to develop, and I think missing out on this opportunity for the Edmonton Oilers will come back, to bite them in the butt, for lack of a better term. But I do think that trading him out, yes, it would suck to see that. As a Toronto fan, you want to see him move now because obviously he has no interest in signing a contract by the looks of it. So you need to get something in return. You just don't want to have this guy sitting at home at 22 years old, wanting to play hockey. So hopefully that they can get this deal done and Nick Robertson can get into training camp in Edmonton, make this roster, and just become a great goal scorer for this club. And it's just a win-win situation for both sides here because, Toronto gets rid of a guy who doesn't want to play for the team, even though there's a whole new coaching staff and everything's new around Toronto this year. It just doesn't seem like Nick Robertson wants to give the Leafs, his talent, which is very weird because if you have a new coach coming in, you'd think you'd be very excited. You sign a one-year deal, say, I'm proving to this new coach that I got what it takes, that I can be a goal scorer in the NHL, and that just gives them that little extra motivation, but just doesn't seem like it's there for Nick Robertson in Toronto right now. So for him to get out, get a fresh landscape, a change of scenery, it could really help out this guy's career, and I think he could become a great player for the Edmonton Oilers, and I think this would be a fantastic trade for both sides, and something that to keep your eye on going into this season, because if he doesn't sign, we are definitely going to have to see him moved before the start of the season, in my opinion. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this trade down below in the comment section. We're going to get into the second topic of the video today, which is the main topic of the video, which is Habs and Leafs battling for UFA. And this is something that when I was doing my research for this video, trying to find something very interesting to put out to you guys today, this is one that caught my eye immediately. It is the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens, rivals, longtime rivals, battling it out to get a player on, a tryout contract. And that player is Filip Zadina. And I know a lot of you guys know that name because he is a great player and he's a young player at 24 years of age. If we just take a look at the report here, they say, according to a Czech reporter, Pavel Barta, Zadina will choose one franchise among the Leafs, Canadiens, and Avalanche, all of them having submitted tryout contracts to the forward for the upcoming training camps. They also go on to say here in the full quote, agent Darren Ferris told Lance Lazowski of the Buffalo News that Filip Zadina is nearing a PTO deal, but will instead sign with another team, Buffalo Sabres. There were also speculation about the Leafs, Avalanche, and Canadiens. So it seems like there's 4 teams involved in this race to get Filip Zadina, with the Leafs being one and the Habs being one as well. So everybody is trying to get Zadina in on a player tryout to see if he can make the cut to the big roster for any of these teams this year. They also go on to say here, if Barta's information is correct, then 24-year-old Zadina should pick one of Toronto, Montreal, Colorado to try to force his way back into the NHL if he proves he's worth signing a regular season roster spot following the end of his PTO deal. And if we just take a look at Filip Zadina, if you're not quite familiar with him, last season he did play on the San Jose Sharks, where he put up 23 points, 13 goals, 10 assists, which is a very solid numbers for a young guy at 24 years of age. They also go on to say here, he had in his time in Detroit, he had a 24-point season where he had 10 goals, 14 assists. So this guy has been, fairly reliable in his NHL career. He has had seasons where he dealt with injury. He has had seasons where maybe he lacked a little bit, but if you're getting him in on a tryout option to see how he gels with your team, to see how he plays with the other players in your organization, and if he fits in well there, you could definitely see this guy come in at a league minimum for a season to prove that, he has the chops of being an NHL player. And at only 24 years of age, this is very eerily similar to what we talked about before the start of last season, which was Jesse Puljujarvi. I think when we talked about this last year, we said we'd love to see Jesse come to Toronto. I think he would be a great fit in that bottom six. Ultimately, we didn't see that happen. But this is something that we could see happen with Zadina, which I would love to see, honestly, because this is a guy who is wanting to play hockey. He's wanting to make these NHL rosters, and if he comes in on a player tryout, plays very well in training camp, then maybe Brad Treliving looks at this and says, hey, this is a guy we need for the regular season. This is a guy who could come in the bottom six here and really shake things up for us, add some offense that we need down there. Like, even though, maybe he's getting 10 and 10 every year, 10 goals, 10 assists, that's still a 20-point player that you have in that bottom six that is going to put points up for you when you need them the most. And I'm just going to bring him up here again. Obviously, he is a right winger, something the Leafs maybe don't really need at this point in time, but it is always great to have these guys come in, even if he is, one of those guys who gets in the lineup, not every night, but maybe every second, third game, just to see how he is. And if he plays a game where he's very hot, you keep this lineup going. And I think this is something very interesting. A former 6th overall pick as well, fairly highly touted prospect at one point in his career. I think this guy, at 24 years of age, still developing, still has a lot to prove, and just getting into his prime, and it's very, very low risk to get this guy. So I think getting him in on a player tryout would be really fun thing for Toronto, and he could really impact this team going into the season. Also, maybe Toronto, there's also teams like Montreal, like we talked about, Colorado, Buffalo. Montreal is a very interesting one for me here because Montreal's a generally young team. So if Montreal, he probably has a better shot to make the roster on a team like Montreal than a team like Toronto. But it all depends on how he meshes with people in training camp and stuff like this. But it is definitely very interesting and something you can keep your eye on because it's always fun to see the Leafs and Habs battle off the ice as much as it is on the ice when it comes in regard to signing these free agents. So keep your eye out for Filip Zadina. I think this guy would do wonders for Toronto, and I'd love just to see him on a player tryout. Maybe we see him sign with the Marlies out of this. Who knows? Maybe he gets a two-way deal where he can go up and down and stuff like that, and just try to get himself back on track and be one of those players that at one point he was highly touted to be. He's a guy who can score goals. He's a guy who can pass the puck as well, and he's great at creating offense, creating shots, creating playmaking chances. It just makes a lot of sense to bring a guy like this in. It's not no risk. He's still 24. He has a lot of time left in his career, so it would be fun to see him here in Toronto. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on Filip Zadina. What do you think? Do you think this guy has what it takes to make this Toronto Maple Leafs roster? Let me know down below in the comment section. We're going to get into everybody's favorite topic here, which is comment of the day. And the comment of the day today goes to our buddy Matthew. Matthew says, Plekanec was such a weird trade, lol. What if they added performance bonuses to Robertson's offer, like games played, assists, goals, even playoff game appearance bonuses? I think that's very interesting. It's something that we see a lot. I'm going to go off track a little bit, but here we see a lot in soccer, which makes a lot of soccer players play a lot better because if they hit their, 10, 15 goals, they get an extra X amount of dollars on top of what they're already making. So seeing some, perf bonuses on a Nick Robertson contract, if he does set to stay in Toronto, would be interesting, and it would give him that little extra edge that he needs to be a consistent player in this Toronto Maple Leafs roster. But appreciate you saying that, Matthew. I really enjoyed that comment on the video yesterday. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Like I said, we're trying to hit 5,000 subscribers. I appreciate it if you can get us one more sub closer by hitting that subscribe button down below. Also, comment on the video. You might feature on the next comment of the day, just like our buddy Matthew was today. And like the video. It helps push these videos out to all the Leafs fans on YouTube. And if you want to check out that video that we did the other day, it'll be popping up on your screen right now. But as always, I've been your host, KC. Keep your stick on the ice.